What is your core? I didn't ask you what's your chords. What is your core? You as wannabe entrepreneur need to define your core. The one core that we are all dependent on, and we hardly think about it, is the Earth's core. The Earth's core gives this planet of ours stability. If something happens to the Earth's core, it will affect the stability of the Earth. So the Earth's core is crucially important for the stability of this Earth to do its rotation around the Sun.
The Earth has three main layers: two parts of the core, the dense, hot inner core, and the molten outer core. Then comes the mantle. And then follows the thin crust, the surface that supports life as we know it. Earth's inner core is approximately 2/3 the size of the Moon. And made of nickel and solid iron, it's burning hot. The temperature at the center of our planet is the same as at the surface of the Sun. It's important to understand the core because it creates our magnetic field, which, in turn, protects the planet from things like solar winds that are charged particles coming from the Sun. The Earth pulsates every 26 seconds. It's like clockwork, a giant heartbeat. The ground is slightly shaking, but we mostly don't feel it.
That is why it is important, wannabe entrepreneur, to also know that you've got a core. Core is found as the basis of a lot of important terms. Core values, your core business, your core beliefs. So you as wannabe entrepreneur define your own core, your center. You have to decide before you start your entrepreneurial journey, what is going to be my core? By defining your core, you define your values. It defines your stability. It is the compass of your life. And if you've defined your core, that is always something to fall back on. Because along the way, this business journey, you're probably going to lose your way. You're going to move away from your core business. And by defining your core values, your core business, it gives you that stable point as a reference where you can come back to when you're losing your way, when you feel lost at sea, when nothing makes sense anymore.
The corporate values are the very foundation of your organization. Today, 80% of the Fortune 100s tout their values publicly, and companies with a high sense of purpose outperform others by 400%. In the bestseller book Built to Last, James Collins and Jerry Porres reveal that purpose and values-driven organizations outperform the general market and comparison companies by 15-1 and 6-1 respectively. Value-driven companies outperform their competition in the way they do business. Core values are the guiding principles that dictate human behavior and action. Core values can help people to know what is right from wrong. It acts as a guideline or code of conduct for decision-making in the company. When companies have clear written values, they tell the world what they stand for. They give their employees a reason for what they do, and their customers a reason to believe in or cheer for them. Human management becomes easier with core values and guiding philosophy. It's easier to delegate tasks. The rule becomes, if you think you need to ask me permission for something, just consult the core values of the company. Moreover, it's better to teach values than teaching rules because core values, at its very basic structure, inherently defines the do's and don'ts. In a company, people are aligned by its values. They become the bond, the common purpose they pursue, and the meaning they define with everything they do. Moreover, the corporate values are the building blocks of the organizational culture. It sets the code of conduct, and it guides in the collective behavior of people in any organization. Without a codified value system, there will be confusion and disharmony among employees and management because values clarify the direction on why you do what you do. So if you want to build a business destined for greatness, build your values today. When you have the right values in place, then you have a strong foundation and you will have a company that is built to last.
If you know what your core is, your core values, the core of your business, that is an anchor point. Just as the Earth's core gives it stability, The Earth's core is in the center of the Earth. That's why you also need a center. A center in your business life, a center in your value system, your core. A hot topic in the exercise world is also core workout, where people have designed these workout programs that focuses on the human body's core. Core is also an important mathematical concept. You get core analysis, and from the word core comes the word correlation. Correlation coefficients, correlation analysis, the Pearson's correlation, correlation and causation, and also in astronomy. You've probably heard of the phrase, the correlation of stars. And the scientists have done studies where the pyramids were designed and placed in correlation with the stars.
The Egyptian pyramids of Giza. They are an archaeological masterpiece, one of the 7 wonders of the world, one of the most famous landmarks on the planet, and the most impressive man-made structures ever made. After many years of studying and our advancement in technology, we are still barely any further in uncovering the truth behind these magnificent structures. How were the huge stones moved? What mysterious cement was used to bind them all together? How are they so aligned? The questions are endless, so from the mysteries to the facts, let's take a dive into one of the most fascinating topics in the world, the Egyptian pyramids. How were they built? Let's start with the most common question of all. How were the pyramids built? It's estimated they took between 10 and 15 years to build, and the ancient engineering feats at Giza were so impressive that even today scientists cannot be sure how the pyramids were constructed. What is known is that the builders would have been highly skilled, strong Egyptians, not slaves as is sometimes depicted, and the workforce was thought to be anything from 14,000 to as many as 40,000. Just think, the Great Pyramid alone is estimated to contain 2.3 million limestone blocks, 8,000 tons of granite, and 500,000 tons of mortar. It's no wonder we question how these huge quantities of building materials were transported, let alone manoeuvred into place, some of which lifted over 450 feet up. What we do somewhat know is that the blocks were from nearby quarries, and as was the tradition with ancient Egyptians at the time, they were cut by hammering in water-soaked wooden wedges into cracks. As the water was absorbed and the wedges expanded, it caused the rock to break. Once they were cut, they were transported by boat or floated using a flotation device, either up or down the River Nile, and then to the pyramid build site. That's the most plausible theory on how the building material was transported to the pyramid site, but that doesn't explain how the pyramids themselves were constructed. First, let's not forget that some of the individual blocks are estimated to weigh as much as 70 tons, with most being around 2.5 tons. Even modern-day, fuel-powered construction cranes don't usually lift more than 20 tons, so how did they do it? There are 2 most popular theories. The first, that once the blocks arrived at the pyramid site, a system of ramps would have been used to haul the stones into place. But given their sheer weight and the height they would have needed to be hauled as the pyramids began to take shape, makes this theory incredibly unlikely, although not impossible. Why did they build them? Bizarre as it may seem, we think we know one thing about the pyramids: why they were built. It's believed these huge constructions were built as tombs for pharaohs and their queens, to protect their bodies and help them on their journey to eternal life. Why and how are the Great Pyramids of Giza the most perfectly aligned structures on the planet? With a footprint of 13 acres, you would think there would be a lot of room for errors in terms of the perfection of the pyramid structure. However, over the years, more and more people have been realizing how aligned they seem to be in relation to stars on Earth. It's mainly the Great Pyramid, which out of the 3 is the one that holds the most secrets and has baffled scientists, archaeologists and astronomers for years. One example is, if you multiply the height of the Great Pyramid by 43,200, it's equal to the polar radius of the Earth. Now this wouldn't mean anything, but if you multiply the base perimeter by the same number, it's equal to the equatorial circumference of the Earth. It could be a complete coincidence, but we are led to believe they were built in a time when nobody knew a thing about the Earth, or that we even lived on a round planet for that matter. The Great Pyramid also faces true north, with only a 3/60th of a degree of error, and when it was built, it was exactly aligned to the North Pole, and is positioned at the centre of the landmass of Earth. The four faces of the Great Pyramid are slightly concave, the only one built this way. However, this phenomenon is only apparent at dusk and sunset on the spring and autumn equinoxes, when the sun casts shadows on the pyramid. And remarkably, the curvature designed into the faces of the Great Pyramid exactly matches the radius of the Earth. The mortar used to build the pyramids is stronger than stone, and over the years has been intensely analysed. Would you believe that although it is known what its chemical compound is, it's been impossible to reproduce? And one of the reasons the pyramid is still standing is that the cornerstone foundations have a ball and socket construction that is capable of withstanding heat expansion and earthquakes. Despite the searing heat of the Egyptian desert, the temperature inside the pyramid is a constant 20 degrees, the same as the average temperature on Earth. And of course, we've all heard about the Orion's Belt theory, that shows the pyramid's positioning matches with the 3 stars.
So core is very important, and core is also part of music. Chorus, and probably one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever composed was Handel's Hallelujah chorus. So core forms the core for a lot of things in this life. But for you wannabe entrepreneur, core basically comes down to 2 things: your core values and the core of your business, your business core. And as a wannabe entrepreneur, you need to define these 2 cores in your life. Your core value system and what is your core business. That is the basis. That is the stable part. Now obviously, from your core you can grow. Another core that's important in everyone's life, not only in the life of the entrepreneur, is core relationships. Those relationships that gives you stability. Because if those core relationships are intact, you don't have to worry. You can then focus on your business, on your core business. You've also heard of the core of a nuclear reactor. If the core of a nuclear reactor gets unstable, it means that that nuclear reactor can explode. You also get a core of people. A small group of people, that's a core of people. And you as wannabe entrepreneur also needs to have a core of people. People that you can trust, people that will help you, people that will boast you. This core of people also forms the core of your business. You also need to have core competencies. You must be in your core competent. Another term where the word cores come in is hardcore and rotten to the core, shaken to the core. As the earth has got an inner core and an outer core, you as entrepreneur also needs to have an inner core and an outer core. Your inner core is your primal beliefs, your core beliefs. Your outer core is your business, your core business. Another part of the word core can be cores. What's a course? A course is a protective layer. And you as wannabe entrepreneur also needs to have a protective layer around you. Something that protects you against the attacks. In computer science, the core of the computer is the CPU. That is the central brain of the computer. So your core is your brain, your central processing unit. That's why you have to protect your core. You have to use your core. As a computer is useless without its core, its CPU, so are you not very valuable or useful if you don't use your core, your brain. And that is where your creativity comes from your core. That's where your value system comes from, your core value system. That is where your business comes from, your core business idea. What is the core definition of core? The core definition of core is a central and often foundational part, usually distinct from the enveloping part by a difference in nature. The core in your body is the central muscles in your stomach, in your torso, and it stabilizes the move of your pelvis, your lower back, your hips, and trunk. I never knew that my body's got a trunk. Another use of the word core is core studies. What is the focal point of your studies, your education? Maybe you've also used the term the core of the argument. What's the argument about? What's the basis of the argument? That's the core of the argument. By defining your core, you define your values. It defines your stability. It is the compass of your life. What is your core? I didn't ask you what's your chords. What is your core?